Thank you to everyone for providing ideas and topics on filmmaking tip videos that I can help out with, because I want to be helpful. That's why I do this. So one of the topics recently was pitch decks and how to create a good pitch deck for investors. So I'm going to answer this in two parts. The most important part of a pitch deck, in my opinion, is that it is the first visual representation of your finished movie that you can convey to another person. Having great imagery, having the look and feel of the deck itself look and feel like the movie, often best accomplished with a graphic designer. This is the best way that you can present to somebody else, here, this is what my movie is going to look and feel like. This can often cost money, especially if you're using a graphic designer, but PowerPoint does have some designer tools. Google Slides is also available. Canva has some better templates. I've seen some really cool stuff on Canva. But again, that is, in my opinion, the most important part about a pitch deck. There's some question about whether you should summarize the story in full in addition to a logline. Some producers think it's better to leave them wanting more, to ask questions. Other producers think it's important to tell the story through to the end so that whoever is reading the pitch deck has an idea of whether this is something they want to invest in or contribute towards or not. And that is the most traditional approach. There's also some debate about comparison films. Now, comparison films are great for aesthetic comparisons because, again, it gives a reference to what your movie is going to look and feel like. My movie is going to be Star Wars meets Angry Birds. That is a kind of high concept Hollywood approach to pitching a story, is taking two movies and blending them together. It's this meets that. And again, if those references are well known, then that can be really, really helpful. But comparison films can be dangerous when it comes to the financial comps. Really, anything pre-COVID is irrelevant. And to a certain extent, it's really, really hard to compare any financials between films because so much depends on the casting, when these films came out, what the subject matter was, who was a part of it. There's so many different aspects that, to a certain extent, most producers understand that comparison films for financial purposes is kind of a lie. But oftentimes you're talking to people who aren't in the industry and you're looking for them to part with their money. And that is where it can also get dangerous because you have to make sure that you include the risk factors as part of your financial pitch. You can't just say, oh, look, this movie from 10 years ago made $100 million and so our movie will too. It's a lie. It's not comparable. I'm not saying that your movie won't make $100 million, but you just can't say that because this movie did, yours will too. So you have to put risk factors into your pitch deck, especially from a financial standpoint. And given the current state of the independent market, especially where there are virtually no pre-sales to distributors and virtually no minimum guarantees once you get a distribution deal, the revenue is slow and trickling in, and everybody is taking their cut, leaving basically nothing. So there is very little return on investment for any of these investors. And you have to be upfront about that reality. Even the studio films are struggling with the financial returns. So how do you present a film that is going to be compelling and gets the right people involved for the right reasons? That is the purpose of a pitch deck. I would not worry about trying to figure out the waterfall and the distribution avenues. All of those things are important, and especially the business-sided producers are going to tell you you need to know all of that stuff. But there's just, in my opinion, no real way to predict that right now. And so the best thing that you can do is to think about who your audience is. Who are you going to target? And really understand that your movie is not for everybody. It's for 2 or 3 or 4 niche markets. And then how are you going to market to those people? How are you going to engage with that audience? Do you already have a built-in audience for the markets that you are looking at? And so that is really how I would approach a pitch deck. Make sure it's visual. Make sure it sells the look and feel of your film. It tells the story about what it is that you're trying to do. It introduces the person who's reading it to you and the people involved and the history that you have. And then it talks about the audience that this movie is for and explains that making films is risky and investing in them is risky. And so you need to show how you are going to use any funds raised to make the best film possible, with the understanding that a return is probably unlikely. And then you just have to find people who are just excited about making good films.